Okay, so we're holding Sif Yud Zayin, but before we proceed with Sif Yud Zayin, just gonna summarize everything we learned until now. We learned that there are something can be found. Derech Nefila, it was dropped. Derech Hinayach or Derech Hanacha, in a way that it was clearly placed there intentionally. And then there is also Safek Hinayach, it's a Safek if it was placed there intentionally. And those three scenarios uh, can play out in three different places where they can be found. Makim hamishtamer lagamri, a place that is safe, a place that is secure. Makim she'in mishtamer klal, a place that is completely not safe, not secure, in a public in a public place, and makim hamishtamer ktsas, in a place that is somewhat secure. So there are many different. Obviously, this is 3 by 3, so this is 9 different scenarios, but it's not 9 different halachas. It's actually pretty straightforward. Something that is derech nefila, something that was dropped. It doesn't really matter where it was found. Most of the time, whether it's a makam hamishtamer, a secure place, or a place that's not secure, or a place that's a little bit secure, if it's something that has a siman, then you take it and do hashavas aveda with it. If it's something that has no siman and it came into your possession after Yayush, so then the halacha is generally hare zeh shaloi, you can keep it. If it's something that has no siman and came into your possession before Yeush, then the halacha is yehimunach at sheyave eliyahu. The only exception to this is something we learned is that if you find it in someone's house, so then generally we assume that it belongs to the balabais, even if it has no siman. Something that is found derech hinayach, or even if it was found safek hinayach, if it was clearly placed there intentionally, it wasn't dropped, it wasn't forgotten, it was placed somewhere intentionally. Or even if it's a suffix, if it was placed there intentionally. So then if it's in a makam mishtamer, it's in a secure place, the halacha is don't touch it. Even if it's in a place that's in a place that it's completely secure. Makim that's mishtamer ktsas, something a place that is somewhat secure. So then if it has a siman, then you do a shabbos aveda, even if it was placed there intentionally, because it's a makim mishtamer ktsas, it's not for sure that it was placed there intentionally, but there's also a possibility that it was forgotten. If it has no siman, then don't take it because there's a possibility it was forgotten. There's a possibility that it was left there intentionally. If you take it, you won't be able to return it because it has no siman. So therefore, the halacha is if it has no siman, don't take it. Something that is in a place that's ein mishtamer klal, that is in a public place. So now, again, anything that has a siman, you take it and return it. The only exception is if it is clear that it was placed here that it was left behind. What was left behind, that's called Aveda Midas. And Aveda Midas, even if it has a siman, you could keep it. And if it's something that has no siman, so then, like we mentioned earlier, if it came into your possession after Yesh, then you can keep it. And if it's something that came into your possession before Yesh, then the halacha is Yehimunach at Sheyave Eliyahu. Hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, don't worry about keeping clear all the different scenarios. As they come up, as they're relevant in the halachas that we're going to learn, we'll emphasize what's important. So Sif Yud Zayin starts. V'kol achras she'al marnu. All in every situation where we said that you have to announce that you found the Metziah. You find the Metziah. Generally, like we mentioned, when do you have to find when do you have to announce that you found the Metziah? If it's something that has a siman. In almost every case, something that has a siman, the halacha is neitel umachers. You have to take it and announce that you found a Metziah, as we'll learn later today how exactly that announcement is made. But before that, kol achraz shamarnu. In all instances where we said that it has to be announced, bein b'meitzah b'derech hanacha, bein b'derech nefila, whether it's derech hanacha was found that in a manner that indicates that it was placed intentionally, or in a manner that indicates that it fell, that it was dropped. Hein kashem b'makim This all applies only in a place where most of the passerby are Jewish, are Yisraelim, are Yidden. Even if most of the city is Goyim. Most of the city of New York is Goyim. There are millions of Goyim in New York City, but most of the passerby on Kingston Avenue in Crown Heights or 16th Avenue in Borough Park are Yidden. So an Aveda that's found on Kingston Avenue or on 16th Avenue, even though Reiv Ha'ir is Goyim, but Reiv Ha'ivrim in this place are Yidden, and therefore there is a halacha of Hashavas Aveda. But something that's found in a place where most of the passerby are Goyim, or even if most of the passerby are Yidden, but it's in a place where there are non-Jewish guards that sit there uh, all the time. Like if you have a place, you have a Jewish city, and most of the passerby are Yidden, but the guards sitting at the gate are Goyim. So if you find something there where most of the passerby are Goyim, or even most of the passerby are Yidden, but they're Goyim who sit there all day and watch, so then we're Taila that everything that you find there, we assume that it fell from a guy, and you're allowed to keep it. Right? There's no mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda by a guy. There it says Avedas Achicha. Avedas Achicha and not from a guy. First of all, we assume that it came from a guy. Now, what if a yid shows up and he gives a simon? So we know that it didn't come from a guy. You know it came from a yid. Ein tzarich lachzir, like still, me'ikar adin, you don't have to return it to him. Shemin astam kvar nisyayish mimenu, because he was probably already miyayish. Im hu davar chashuv, ay davar kavich, yada kvarmin filasei mishachachasei esekenu shabal yadam. If it's something heavy or something chashuv, like we mentioned in the past, money is something that a person notices when they drop right away. A watch is something that people notice when they lose. Within a couple minutes, they notice that it's lost, even if it's something that it has a simon. But because it was dropped in a place where Raiv Nachrim, so as soon as they noticed that it was gone, they were miyayish. Commission as once they know that it was gone and they were miyayish, there is no longer any mitzvah or any reason to do Hashavas Aveda. Umikol Makim. If you find Sfarim in a place where Reiv Ha'ivrim are Goyim, you find a Sefer in JFK airport. Most of the passerby in JFK are Goyim. Me'ikar din, the halacha is, even if it came from a Yid, and we know it came from a Yid, what's a guy doing with Sfarim, is Miyayish, you don't have to return it. However, Sfarim is an exception, because what's a guy going to do with Sfarim? He's going to sell it to a Yid. So therefore, Ein ha'ev the Mesiyash me'en afilu b'reiv nachrim, v'chayev lahachris. Then the one who loses it is not Miyayish, even if it's Reiv Goyim, and one is obligated to be Machris if you find Sfarim. So you find a Siddur at the Hilm, the Gemara, something in JFK, if it has a simon, which a lot of times it does, has a name, with a phone number, then there is a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. Everything we said above is the letter of the law. But it is correct and proper. The Sma in Cheshmesh points out this a pasuk in Torah, Vasisa Yasher V'Atayv, Lases Lefnim Mishur Sadin, to go beyond the letter of the law, Lahafzer Afilu B'Rev Nachrim L'Misha Yitin Simin, to return something, even in a place where most of the passerby are goyim, to somebody who shows up and gives a simon, even though he was already in the Siyash, and technically you can throw the book at them, so to speak, and say you were Miyash, so I'm allowed to keep it. Torah says, Vasisa Hayasher V'Atayv, and it is Yasher V'Tayv, it is proper to go beyond the letter of the law and return it to its original owner. You don't have to announce that you found it. You found it in a place that's Rev Goyim. You don't have to announce it. But if the owners come and they say, I was sitting here at the gate 5 minutes ago, I left behind a wallet. This is what it looks like. Whatever. Maybe you saw it. They say, yeah, I found it, and it's mine because we're in a place where we're going. Uh, if they're coming asking for it, yasher v'tayv, they give it back to them. V'im yedem yatz b'shel mihu, yachziren alei afal pishalei tava. And if you know yourself who it belongs to, it has a name and a phone number in it, then you don't have to wait for them to come and ask them. It's again yasher v'tayv to give it back to them. Even if it's something that has no siman, if you know for a fact who it belongs to, you see the person walking away and you said they left their wallet behind. You know who it belongs to. It has no siman maybe, but nevertheless, yesh is not called a hefker gomer. That you can just keep it with no other with no conditions. It's yasher v'toiv. It's the correct thing to do to return it, even when it's not strictly required. Okay. Even likewise, if you save something from a lion, a bear, or a river, something falls into a river and gets swept away, something is come and is taken by a lion or a bear, the bailam are miyash. The owner is miyash. You come along and the shibshan giver and you are able to retrieve it from the lion. The halacha is you're allowed to keep it. They were already miyash, even if they're, as the Alter was going to say, even if they weren't miyash. If there's no way for them to get it back, even if they're standing, the Alter doesn't say, it says in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Rishon and Test, even if they're standing there and screaming that they want it back, you're not getting it back. Something that is lost from you, and something that is lost from Reuven, and you come along Shimon and you find it. I lost it, but others can find it. Something that was grabbed by a lion, by a bear, or swept away by a river, that's not a chartevan mimenu. It's avuda from everyone in the world. It's impossible to save it. It's impossible to get it back. Oh, the Alter does it. Even if you're standing there and you're screaming, I'm not miyayish, I'm planning on getting it back. Okay, you can stand and scream, but it's not happening. It's like someone who's standing and screaming about his house that's burning down or his ship that's sinking. It's very tragic, but the screaming doesn't help. He says he's not miyayish, but you are miyayish. You might be in denial. Nevertheless, again, me'ikar adin, you're not obligated to return it. Something washes up on the beach, you're not obligated to return it, even if it has a siman, even if it has a phone number, whatever, it's gone. It's avuda mikol ha'olam. Nevertheless, vasisa yasher v'atayv, it's the proper thing to return it. Okay, this next sifchaf is a similar idea. It's not as practical. Avazim tarnagelim, shamardu barchim beis baleim, geese and roosters that ran away. V'yafshel lahem lachzirim kol. You're not able to get them back. If you find them, you can keep them because they're hefker. It is the proper thing to go lifnim mishur sadin and return it. Kilei charva Yerushalayim elal shahamidu divreim al din Torah. It's quite a unsettling statement. Yerushalayim was destroyed. Why? Because they said we're going by din Torah, the letter of the law. Torah says you don't have to return it, so you don't have to return it. That's it. The Gemara tells us that Yerushalayim, Rahman al was destroyed for this reason, and therefore it is strongly encouraged to do the Yasher V'Toiv and return it even when technically you don't have to. Moreover, there is an opinion that says in all these situations, if the one who found it was an ani, sorry, not moreover, an exception. If the one who found it was an ani, and the one who lost it was a wealthy person, the ani is not required. The ani bashkacha pratis found a way to acquire something that al pi halacha he's allowed to keep. So you don't have to. The ani does not have to go v'asisa hayasher v'atayv. He doesn't have to go beyond the letter of the law and return it to the usher. The usher is able to get himself what he needs, and the ani is allowed to keep it. Okay, this is a yesh mishaimer, but there are a lot of achreinim who say who hold it this very strongly that the bezdin should enforce this in the case of the ani v'asher. Okay, now until now, the last 20 sifim, we learned about Avedis, davar sheyesh b'simin, davar she'ein b'simin, where it's found, derech nefila, derech hanacha, and in many cases, we learned that you have to be machers, you have to do Hashavas Aveda. So now comes Sif Chaf Aleph, how practically, how do we perform this mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda? V'kol achrazis she'amarnu. All the announcements of lost articles mentioned above, tzirkas liyas b'bate knesiyas b'bate midrashis. You have to, the announcements are made in shuls and in bate medrash. In other words, you go into shul, you bang on the bima, and you say, well, what you say we're gonna learn soon, and you make the announcement. Now nowadays, first of all, this is done usually by hanging up signs in shuls and in bate medrash, which is also perfectly acceptable. However, what is a little bit more complicated, this is all very nice in a place where there's one shul, and you find something on the street, and you know that the person is most likely going to end up in shul at some point, and is going to hear about the announcement, or he's going to see your sign. But in places nowadays, in Muncie and Brooklyn, there are 100 shuls. So to make an announcement in a shul, so if you know generally which shuls, or maybe even a couple shuls, lav dafka, you're mechuyev to make an announcement in more than one shul. But what is done is there are websites and that have Hashavas Aveda postings, and um, there are newspapers and publications that do this as well. You're not mechuyev to spend money to announce an Aveda, and if you do, lav davka, you can demand it back from the owner if you eventually find them. They might be very grateful and offer to pay, but you're not mechuyev to. But if it's possible to do it for free, it's definitely online. It's possible to do it for free. So that's the best way to do it. ובזמן שיש אנשים רעים שאומרים שהמציאה היא למלך, מגיע לשכניו ולמידov v'day. In a time where there were wicked people who would say that, no, what do you mean? What do you mean Hashavas Aveda? There's the law of the Dina de Malchusa, which we discussed when we learned Hilchos Gzela, that any lost object has to go to the government, it belongs to the king. So no Hashavas Aveda. So basically, it wasn't possible to really do Hashavas Aveda in this manner. So then you tell your friends and your neighbors, post it on your WhatsApp group, and that's enough. But nowadays we don't have that's not such a big issue. So therefore, just telling your friends and neighbors is not really enough. Has to be an announcement that's going to reach as many people as possible. But there's no obligation to go out of your way or to spend money or to spend to go out of your way. There is go out of your way. There is a tircha. One is obligated to take on a certain amount of tircha for Hashavas Aveda, but not to spend any money and not excessive tircha. You have to make the announcement. You have to hang up the signs. You have to make sure that the word gets out, but not more than that. When one announces and informs people that he found an Aveda, you say what you found. You say, I found a coat. I found an umbrella. I found a wallet. And then somebody who will hear and say, "Oh, I lost the coat, I lost the wallet, I lost an umbrella." He'll come and he'll give you the simanim, which is it's important to know that when you make an announcement that you found an aveda, not to give away too much information, because if you give away there's machlekes in Gemara already. If you say aveda matzasi, I found an aveda, and the person has to come and say what the aveda is, Or you can say glima matzasi. I found a glima, which is a coat, some type of garment, and then the person could come and say and say what the simanim are. So we're makel that you say you don't have to say aveda matzasi. We're not worried that aveda matzasi somebody's going to come to. So if you say glima matzasi, somebody's going to figure out. Oh, I know that my neighbor he lost a glima and he's going to come and he knows the simanim. We're not worried that far. So we are makel that you say glima matzasi. You say the type of what aveda is. You don't just say aveda matzasi. I found an aveda, but not more than that. To give away the simanim is opening up the door for a dishonest person to come and say, "Oh yeah, that's fine." That's and that's not okay. So that's important to know. Ve'im Amar Metziah stam matzasi, v'alo Omer mahi in zasimin. If you just say, "I found the Metziah," and the other person says what the Metziah is, that's not a simon because that's not possible for him to know. Oh, you found something, so he could take a guess, and he knows that his friend, his neighbor, lost a coat, lost an umbrella, lost a wallet. Yeah, it has to be siman muvhak. V'lo yitan lo yachayitin simanim muvhakim has to be a distinct siman k'gein mida, a mishkal, a minyan, oy sheichaven hamakim. You can only return something al pi simanim muvhakim. What are simanim muvhakim? Mida, measure, mishkal, weight, minyan, the amount. I found the key ring. How many keys were on there? There were 3 keys, 4 keys, 7 keys. That's minyan. Oy sheichaven hamakim, or I found a keyring. Where did you find it? You found it in this and this place. It has to be an exact place. Not I found it on this street. It has to be a very, very specific place. Now, okay, let's finish the Seif and then we'll speak a few more minutes about simanim. A person who is known as a cheat, as a liar, even if he gave simanim, you can't return it to him. He has to bring edim that it belongs to him. This is already a Mishnah, a Gemara, and that you cannot return an Aveda al pi simanim until any person brings, and it doesn't matter who it is, unless it's a Talmid Chacham, as we'll see. But most people have to bring edim that they are not a ramei, that they're not a liar. Or to a Talmid Chacham, you can return an Aveda to a Talmid Chacham even without edim that he is not a ramei. Even bezman hazeh, somebody who's considered a Talmid Chacham can be considered a Talmid Chacham le'inyan zeh, as opposed to what we learned earlier, that for Tviyas Ayin, the Alter Rebbe is mistapik, if we can say the din of Talmid Chacham for Tviyas Ayin, but over here we do say Talmid Chacham. Uprate dinei hasimanim rava behem adekdukim. And there are many details involved with the dinim of simanim. Therefore, one should not return anything al pi simanim without asking a chacham. Okay, so a few things to unpack here. First of all, the idea of returning, you can't really return an aveda to most people, even al pi simanim, until they bring edim that they're not a ramai, that they're not a liar. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that nobody does this, so, which is difficult to understand. It's a clear halacha. It's a Mishnah, and the Alter Rebbe passing this way, everybody passing this way. So there are a few potential ways of approaching it. And just to make a disclaimer, just to be clear, this is the halacha. The halacha is that you're not allowed to return something to someone al pi simanim until they bring edim that they're not a ramai, unless they're a Talmid Chacham. So, but one thing is, first of all, the whole idea of simanim is only if you don't know who it belongs to. If you know who it belongs to, then you don't need simanim. Somebody comes to your house and they leave behind their coat, and you know whose coat it is, you don't need simanim. Moreover, something that has a name and a phone number, even if you didn't know, you didn't recognize necessarily the coat, but pashtos, that's even better than a siman. That's a ki'ilu, you know whose it is. That's already a shtickle chiddush. I wouldn't say to rely on that, but that's opisvara. It's mistaber. However, there's another approach that is more is gehalten, which is as follows. Earlier we spoke about simanim, and we said you only return al pi simanim muvhakim. What are simanim muvhakim? Simanim are relevant to a number of areas in halacha. There's a tshuva of the Alter Rebbe. It's probably the longest tshuva of it's for sure the longest tshuva that we have from the Alter Rebbe, and it might be one of the longest tshuvas ever. And it's in the new print of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. It's 50 pages, Siman Chav Ches, and it's about all about simanim. That tshuva specifically is about an aguna, but the Alter Rebbe also speaks about Hashavas Aveda and other areas of halacha kashrus where simanim are important because they're all connected. And in general, the poskim explain there are three types of simanim. There's something called the lowest level of siman. It's called siman garua. This is we mentioned it in the past. What the Gemara calls siman chiver v'sumak, white or red, aruch v'gutz, long or short. Very, very vague in general to say what color it was, to say it was big or it was small. This siman is completely worthless for Hashavas Aveda, and certainly for Aguna, this siman is nothing. Allah is even if you have 100 simanim gruim, definitely for sure for an Aguna, it's completely worthless. The only place is as the Alter Rebbe explains in the tshuva over there, and Salach in certain in Yanim of Kashrus, where we don't really need a proper siman, even a tviyasayin is enough, even a chaysam, a seal, you don't even really need to recognize the chaysam, so it's even less, it's even a lower level than a siman garua. But for something that we need a real siman garua is nothing. Second level is called siman beinani. Siman beinani is what the Alter Rebbe says over here: mida, mishkal, minyan, or makim. How long it is, how big it is, exactly. Not it's big or it's small. Exactly its dimensions, exactly how much it weighs, exactly how many there were, or exactly which place it was. Now, you'll notice over here, I just said it's called Siman Beinani. The Alter Rebbe calls it Simanim Muvhakim. And the reason is because it's for regarding Agunis, this is called Simanim Beinanim. Regarding Aveda, this is called Siman Muvhak. To return an Aveda, a siman beinani by an aguna is good enough, is like a siman muvhak. Now we just said that we don't return even al pi simanim muvhakim unless a person brings edim that he's not a ramay. So the truth is, there's a third level of simanim, and the third level of simanim is called simanim muvhakim or siman muvhak gomer. And that's what the Gemara says, Nekev b'tzad ois pleni. You find a document, a shtar, and the siman is, it has a hole next to ois pleni, not shura pleni. It's not next to a specific line, not on the top or on the bottom. A very, very exact, something that there is not 1 in 1,000 other objects that will have the same siman. A document that has a hole in a very specific place. For an aguna, a person that has a unique characteristic that no one else has, or that very, very few other people have. Okay, we're not obviously not talking about agunas, but something like one of the questions of if you can rely on DNA or fingerprints even for agunis is as a fingerprints DNA for sure is something that is muva gomer. Nobody else has the same. No two people have the same DNA, and fingerprints also no two people. But even if it's 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100, huge numbers. So the Rama writes in Simon Rish Samach Zayin and Cheshen Mishpat that Yesh Emrim that you can return an Aveda even to a Ramai al pi simanim muvakim. Now the Achreinim have a few different ways of explaining it, but the way some Achreinim learn, which l'cher makes a lot of sense, is what the Rama is saying, and it's really a rush that you can return even to a Ramai al pi siman muvhak gomer, something that's a siman muvhak, even for an aguna, you can return an aveda even to a ramay. So the Alter Rebbe clearly doesn't bring this. There are different ways of understanding the Rama, and not everyone passes this way, and the Rama only brings it as a Yashaimer. But I'm suggesting that as a limud schos, you can say that somebody does return something based on siman muvhak gomer, even without edim, that the person is not a ramai, they have what to rely on. So, what's a siman muvhak gomer? A name and a phone number, but pashtus is a siman muvhak gomer. Okay, but nevertheless, you see, as the Alter Rebbe says here, prate dine hasimonim ravu behem adikdukim lekach lo yachzer b'siman ela al pi shaylas chacham. To return an aveda al pi a siman should always ask a chacham. Therefore, also kind of makom laher that it's a very good thing that there is a way to publicize nowadays an aveda on websites or in public forums. But if somebody does show up to collect their aveda al pi simanim, it's important to consult with a chacham. We're going to conclude just by reading the first two lines of Seif Chav Beis. We're not going to read the whole thing. If you announced an aveda and the owner did not show up, the aveda has to remain by you. You're not allowed to use it, you're not allowed to sell it. So now we have two situations where the halacha is something that has no siman, that was found before Yeush. The halacha is something even that it has a siman, that you announced it and nobody showed up to collect it. The halacha is now, needless to say, is a very challenging thing. As we're going to see later in the siman, it's not enough to just put it in a closet and forget about it. You have to take care of it. The Torah gives you a din of Hashem or Aveda. It's a big responsibility. So the question is there another solution? And the answer is yes. And it's based on the following halacha. In Simon Reish Samach Zayin, Alter Rebbe doesn't bring it, but in Shulchan Aruch and Simon Reish Samach Zayin, Seif Chaf Aleph, Shulchan Aruch says as follows: Matzah tefillin. If you find tefillin, sham demeyan, you evaluate how much they cost. Umanichan alav, miyad imirta, and then you could put them on and wear them and use them. Shedavar matzi hu lekneisem b'chol shah. Because tefillin, it's something that is matzi lekneisem b'chol shah, something that you can always buy. By the Seif, you can always buy tefillin. People are buying new tefillin all the time. It's not something that they're concerned with. That use my tefillin, his tefillin. Nobody's connected specifically to their tefillin. Now, needless to say, nowadays it's the exact opposite with tefillin. People are very connected. So my tefillin, excuse me. People are very connected that this is my tefillin, and I don't want to use anyone else's tefillin. And whatever, people become attached to their tefillin. So this din of dafka by tefillin punkt doesn't really. It's hard to say nowadays that it would be the same thing. But almost everything else is like tefillin. Almost everything else, all types of clothes and umbrellas and pens and coats, is something that's matzi l'kneisim b'chol shah. Based on this halacha, a lot of today's poskim suggest that what you can do is, if you find something, the same halacha. Sham demeyan umanichan. Now, this is itself is a machlekes. Some say that it's dafka tefillin. Tefillin is a mitzvah, so it has to be something that is a chayfet shel mitzvah. However, there are those who say, and you want to be makel, there is who to rely on, that it's not lav dafka tefillin, lav dafka something that's to do with a mitzvah. Anything that's matzi liknis b'chol shah, which nowadays almost everything is commercially manufactured, you can say sham demeyan, which means you have to figure out how much it's worth. You write it down, and if it has any simonim, you write down what the simonim are, and then you essentially, what you did is you purchased the aveda from its owner, and now you can do whatever you want with it. You can keep it, you can throw it in the garbage, you can give it away, but you have to have that. You have to keep it written down, and if the owner ever does show up, if it's something that has a simon with a simon, or something that has a simon, no simon, without they show up with edim, or with Eliyahu and Avi will show up very soon as Hashem, and he'll tell us who it belongs to. So then you will return the value of the object to the owner. So that is a solution that like I said, a lot of today's poskim suggest for a lot of avedas, that is something that it's matzi liknis mechol shah. And with that, where the halacha would be, again, if it's something that has a simon, you have to try to return it. The halacha is you have to be machers. If nobody shows up, or if it's something that has no simon, there's nothing to try because there's no simonim. The halacha is yehemunach shayav aliyo. If it's something that is motzi liknis b'chol shah, you can always buy it in the store. So you open up a Google Doc and you write down, I found this and this thing. This is how much it's worth, and these are the simonim that it has, and then you could do whatever you want with it. And if the owner shows up, you will then return them the value of the lost object. Okay, we'll stop here for now. Shakayach to everyone who joined.